Our next storyteller is Dr. Debbie Prince, and Dr. Prince is on faculty in the Department of Theology and Religious Studies.
Hi, all. This might sound weird coming from a professor of theology, but then again, maybe it won't. But I've been known to get really angry and offended when I hear people expressing views that belittle other people or other groups of people. And this actually happened to me a few years back now at a religious retreat that I was on for a weekend. The retreat was at my church, although not everybody was from my church. It was actually kind of an ecumenical retreat, so people from multiple Christian denominations were there. I am Presbyterian, but a lot of different denominations. And although most people were from southern Indiana, where my church is, there were people who came from Illinois and Ohio, so quite some diversity there. Anyway, these weekends are really intense. You sleep overnight for like 3 nights together. You really get to know each other. And it's organized around 12 talks that happen over these three days. And the talks happen, different people give them. Well, on the second day, one of the talks was on the sacraments, and there was a minister, a Presbyterian minister, so my tradition, who was giving this talk. Now, because this is an ecumenical retreat, even though in my tradition we only have 2 sacraments, baptism and communion, this talk recognizes that other sacraments are part of other Christian practices and worship. And so the sacrament of marriage was one of the parts of the talk that he was giving. Well, I'm sitting there listening to this Presbyterian minister start talking about marriage, and in the process, he basically said things that made me feel like he just punched me in the stomach. So first off, it started off when he started talking about marriage between a husband and a wife, where the husband is the spiritual leader of the marriage. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so a little bit about me. I was born and raised in the church. My father was a minister. The church was my life, pretty much my entire life. And then I even discerned and felt called to ministry. I have a Master's of Divinity degree, but never was ordained, but thought I might be a minister. And then when I realized my gifts were teaching, I went to get a doctorate in New Testament studies. And this guy is telling me that in my marriage, my husband is my spiritual guide. Now, I love my husband, and he is a spiritual person, but we work on that together. And if I have to say anything, I kind of ended up guiding him a little bit more. When we first got married, he wasn't all that into it, but that has changed. But anyway, so I'm sitting there just aghast, right? And he keeps talking about the role of a husband and wife in marriage and the whole kind of traditional Christian language of the wife being submissive to the husband. And I'm just absolutely, I'm just feeling like he's dismissing me. I'm just being belittled, and I'm just absolutely in pain by this, because here is a member of the clergy of my own tradition in my own church saying these things about what feels like my marriage. And I just started fuming. My heart was racing. And this is kind of a long talk that he's giving, and then he keeps going on, and then that was bad enough, and then he starts talking about how marriage is only for men and women, a man and a woman. Now, yes, that describes my marriage and my sexual identity, but just about my whole adult life, I, through my own study and my own experience, have come to believe absolutely that is not a sufficient description or definition of marriage. And in fact, in the Presbyterian Church, of which this guy is a minister, Presbyterian Church is open to same-sex marriage, and ministers are allowed to conduct same-sex marriage. So I'm sitting there and I'm just going, what is going on? Like, how is this minister saying these things to us? I was so much in pain. I started to cry. It was not good. I managed to sit still through the rest of his talk. Immediately after his talk, the next part was to go up to the sanctuary, because of course he's talking about sacraments, so he was talking about communion. So next thing we did is go up to the sanctuary to celebrate communion together. And of course, guess who's presiding over communion? This minister. So he's standing up there at the table, and I'm still fuming, sitting there in the pew, and going, I don't even think I can take communion from his hand. I really don't think that I can. But as he started to say the words of institution, as he broke the bread, as he poured the wine or the juice, we use juice, in the cup, and he started talking about Christ's sacrifice for us as sinners, our failings, our need for Christ and for each other, that we come together to celebrate this ritual as a community, that we are bound together as the body of Christ. I mean, all of this language that I've grown up with, I just felt that anger just wash out of me. And I just started to feel the presence of the Spirit surrounding me and surrounding us. And even though I know he did not know how I was feeling, I almost felt like the presence of the Spirit was somehow connecting the two of us in a special way. And I took communion from him. And it was one of the most meaningful communion experiences I've had. And it took me a while, but right now what I thought for myself is that I was just amazed at the power of that ritual to remind me of our shared humanity, to remind me that we are not defined by our differences, that we are all struggling to be faithful to God, and to be members of the body of Christ. He is struggling as much as I am, and we all have failures. We all get it wrong, and I get things wrong, and he gets things wrong, and I just was amazed at that connection, and I just left there feeling like, yeah, we are more than our differences, and that's how it should be. We are united as children of God, and just, one of the most powerful experiences.